You're watching CCN, Clarksville Community Network, produced by Goodwin Productions. Powered by CDE Lightband.
Welcome to Historic Collinsville. We'd like to show you around today and show you what life was like before the Civil War and after the Civil War in the 1830s, in the 1840s, and in the 1870s. You are in the Visitor Center. We call it the 1830s Weekly Visitor Center, and we call it the Weekly Visitor Center because Glenn's grandfather lived in this house, and his father was born in this house in 1906. The Visitor Center is a very humble little building. It started out as one room with an upstairs, and you wonder, well, why is it so special? Well, it's age for one thing. It was built in the 1830s, and think about having your grandparents' house. This represents the houses that were in this area from the 1830s. If you look, it has the original ceiling, it has the original rafters. We have indoor bathrooms, which certainly they didn't have. And all that his grandmother ever had was a little lean-to kitchen on the back. So we thought this would be perfect to show you what life was like then. The Wildlife Center was part of Cabin Row Plantation. That's where it came from, off of East Road.
My name is Glenn Weekly. I'm a old-time farmer. We were traveling around and started collecting some antiques. We visited a lot of different places and met a lot of people and started liking antiques, started collecting them, and started there and been going ever since. She'd always hunted with me wherever we hunted, whether it was here or whether it was out west or wherever we were together. Most of these birds and animals back here, a lot of them are endangered species, but TWRA gave us a permit to display some of them, and they had this big beaver behind me here and donated that, and we started taking what we had and put it together. What's in the first room was here in Tennessee at one time or another. The big elk disappeared in the late 1700s. Indian artifacts all came off the farm here when we were cultivating at the back along the Cumberland River there. The building it is in was donated to us from a farm down the Cumberland River about 3, 4, 5 miles. It was once a slave cabin. That was what it was built for. And we took it down, log by log, brought it back, put it up, and opened it and made it into a wildlife center. Caribou over there came from Baffin Island. They hunted with the Inuit Indians, and during the time, one of their people had killed a walrus, big old walrus, and brought him in. That was an experience I'll never forget.
Welcome to the Lewis House. You'll look around and you'll see this is a small building. It was built before the 1840s. However, we only have a record from 1842 forward. Well, my favorite subject, of course, is Historic Collinsville. So I kept looking for log houses. I thought, what can we do that won't cost a fortune, that can develop over time, that can help these children? So I found the Lewis House. A fellow named George Williamson Lewis came over the mountains with his wife, Cindy, and built a little house and moved in. It was in Stewart County in the Cub Creek area, and we were fortunate enough to find it in 1974. So we moved it here, and Carlos Lewis, the gentleman we acquired it from, it belonged to his great-great-grandfather who lived here, George Williamson Lewis. He and his wife moved in. They had 13 children who were born in this house, and back then the children would leave and apprentice out just about as soon as they were 11, 12, 13 years old. They would go and learn how to make barrels, they would become coopers, they would learn to be a tinsmith, they would find someone in the area. And Clarksville was roaring in the 1840s. It was quite developed. This is our kitchen stove right back here, the fireplace. This was all they had to cook the food by. The bellows. Every morning it was the job of the oldest child to come down the steps and get the fire going for breakfast. So everything in here is authentic. You'll notice this was the dining room, very small, but they probably ate in their lap. There was no room. This is an earlier than an 1840 chair. This is from the late 1700s. You'll notice the mushroom arms. We're thankful to have this. And also the churn. If you wanted any butter, if you like butter on your toast or your biscuits, this is what it took. You would have to start with the milk from the cow, and then you'd go up and down until your arm would nearly drop off. A spinning wheel always at the mother's feet almost, because she had to make all the clothes for the family. She had to spin the wool, spin the cotton, spin it into thread, then dress the loom, which you'll see later, weave it into a fabric, and then make the garments. So times were hard. You think that we have it rough now, we just don't really know what it's all about. And here are all the things that she needed for her spinning. Now we're on the other side of the Lewis house. We're showing you a very large apparatus, which is a loom. And you might think, well, why in the world do you have this loom in here in such a small space? But remember, the Lewises just came over the mountain. It's winter time. They're going into a season where they need warm clothes, and the only way they have warm clothes is to spin the thread and weave it into fabric. So this is the loom that's used to take the thread from the spinning wheel, warp the loom, cut the fabric off the loom, and make the clothes. Otherwise, you'll be wearing the same outfit all winter, just what you brought over the mountains. And of course, we have the little bed. This is a mother and father's bed. The children all slept upstairs. You'll notice it's not so large, and it is several feather beds in one. So everything's here the family needed. It's not very convenient because it's too small. However, they managed. You'll notice the mirror up over my head. You can see how wavy it is, and the mercury and all behind it. A little different mirror from the one you look at in the mornings. These folks had a roof over their head. They had a fireplace they could cook their food on, and they made it. They were tough, hardy people, which we need to emulate. The Lewis house was all there was initially, and I really, in my farthest dreams, possibly thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a settlement? We were able to move the smokehouse that was down there up to the Lewis area, and we were able to obtain 2 more buildings. So that made a fairly comprehensive 1842 area. And then we had a loom house we were able to acquire, chicken house, a blacksmith shop. Being an accountant, I started a 501c3 nonprofit organization in 1987. I thought we were ready to open to the public. Today we're in the child's bedroom of the 1870s house, the Batson house, the double pen dog trot house. All of those names apply to this house. We know of two of the Roberts children, a boy and a girl, and this was her little bedroom. She has a tea party going here, so she can invite her friends and they can play with their dolls, and we have toys of the era. And of interest is this dresser here. This was made in Clarksville, Tennessee. And those of you familiar with Clarksville know where the posting block is. And it says, J.F. Couch, you need a biscuit. And it's been there, painted there for hundreds of years. So on one of these drawers here, when you open it, it says J.F. Couch. It will pay you to call for undertaking and furniture. But the bed and all of the furnishings are appropriate to the era. They're before either 1870 or before, and the washstand to the left of the bed was also made in Clarksville. We have special things that have always been in Collinsville in the Batson Dog Trot House, and it was built for Miss Catherine Kitty Batson. Oh, Miss Kitty was a beautiful lady. Her daddy built her this house. Well, welcome to the parlor. This parlor is so special. Number one, it was the first room built for Miss Kitty and her first husband. She fell in love with Mr. Williams, and she wanted to get married in 1855, so her good father, Thomas Hatton Batson, told her he'd build her a house. And I have a picture of Miss Kitty with her third husband. Now, the sad thing about Miss Kitty is the second husband was Mr. Roberts, Samuel Roberts. So he goes out the road, has not far from the house, had his overalls on, and here comes a group of Union soldiers, not too far down the road. And the captain said, don't shoot, I think he's a civilian. Well, apparently they didn't care whether he was a civilian or not because they shot and they killed him. So that left Miss Kitty with two husbands deceased and two small children. So she was left here with the 3-year-old and the 18-month-old, and along came Mr. Neblett. And this is a picture of Miss Kitty when she was very old. She was a lovely lady when she was younger, and a picture of Mr. Neblett. And they lived in this house, I believe, until the last one died, probably 1916. So we just needed to tell you that Miss Kitty's father really thought enough of her to build her a nice house. We're furnished with very early things. The earliest furniture we have is in here. This is a settle table, and it is from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and it makes a settee. The top lifts up, and it can be your sofa, it can be a bed for the child, it can be the dining table. Whatever you wish. Space was at a premium when there was just one room, and this bench has always been with it. It's mortised and tenoned. A very fine bench, and then we have another bench here. And may I say that the Windsor chairs and all the furnishings are authentic. You won't find anything that's not appropriate to the period. The lady who wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb had this in her house in Sterling, Massachusetts. And the person that I bought it from at Heart of the Country in Nashville, Tennessee, had been to an auction at her home and bought this. It's a baby tender, as I say, the little child sat here with his legs stuck out. It's a walker. You see it has wooden rollers. So he bought it at an auction where it was rammed up against an upstairs ceiling. And another reason is that she became very famous as a Renaissance woman. Sarah Hale was her name. She was an entrepreneur. She later became the editor of Vogue magazine, and she lived in Sterling, Massachusetts. And she lost her husband, and that's why she had to start writing books and songs. And one thing that interests them in here, other than just furniture, they're not too interested in furniture, would be their little hope chest that they brought over the mountain with them. And we show them what the children made. And the little boys had to use what they have on hand, which would be a corn cob, and the little shucks for the ears. So this is a corn cob pig, minus a leg. They like that a lot. Then the ladies, we tell the ladies, okay, ladies, girls, what is this? Oh, it's scissors. No, it's not scissors, it's a curling iron. Oh, yes, we tell them that it would be placed on the stove or on the hearth to get warm, and then if it's too hot, you start using it on your hair and you smell the sizzling, which is not good. Then the boys. Here's a little cup, special. Okay, boys, what is this made out of? Oh, it's plastic. No, it's not plastic. Walks around in the field going moo. Oh, horn, yes. You would have had your own horn cup. And it's a marvelous cup, very well made. Longhorn steers. Little girls had to make their own toys. Our purpose is to teach them the concept of time so they can understand. They immediately see the difference between the 1840s down the road and the 1870s here. So they can see there's a difference. Well, we're in the bedroom now of the Batson house, and it's called the Batson Dog Trot House, mainly because there was an opening between the two rooms. This is after the war, and these folks are well-to-do. These folks were fortunate. They could go down to the river, which is only a quarter of a mile down the road, and they could buy whatever Cincinnati or New Orleans had to offer. All right, we're in the kitchen now. The kitchen would have been a separate building because kitchens often caught on fire, as you can imagine. We're fortunate to have an 1879 Maxwell House Hotel Christmas Day menu, and it's the real thing. So when I read to them the wild game that was served, I start with leg of Cumberland Mountain black bear with sauce provide, and then Tennessee opossum baked with sweet potatoes, and they're going, ew, I couldn't stand that. And then I mentioned Kentucky coon with devil sauce, and I hold up this fella. Is that a raccoon? Yes, that's a raccoon. That's what they would eat. And they did eat. I can't believe it. So would you like to feel it? Oh, yes, yes. And I know some people now that still eat this. So fortunately, game was placed here by the good Lord for us to eat. You're now in the Wildwood Church and School, a very important building. As you can see, it's a one-room schoolhouse. We have the benches with no backs on the benches, and this is historically correct. We have some letters from the 1800s that tell us this. But this little one-room church and school was a busy place. Now, in about 1870, there were 75 inhabitants of Collinsville. And remember, Southside, which is now Southside, was called Collinsville prior to 1880 because the mail was being missent to Collierville in West Tennessee. And there was a great uprising in the big city of Collinsville to get their mail, so they changed the name to Southside in 1880. And if you'll look at the different pieces of furniture in here, you'll see a teacher's library. This is one of a kind, and it was made for a Rosalie Klein, who was a school teacher. And the front closes up, it has a drawer, and it has a laptop. We call it the first laptop, which the children really enjoy. Now the piano right behind me has a story also. There was a little girl in Collinsville named Clara Harris. She was about to be 9 years old, and this was in 1870. And she wanted a piano for her birthday, and she begged her parents, please, please. So they were of substantial means, and they ordered this piano from Cincinnati. It's a Cincinnati Cabinet Grand, and it was loaded on a riverboat, and it came down the river and then up the river to the Shelton Ferry landing down at the foot of the hill, less than a quarter of a mile away. And her father, Mr. Harris, went down with his wagon and his team of mules, and he brought it up for Miss Clara. And the story is that she taught music all of her life and is buried out in the Southside Cemetery. These folks were mostly Scotch-Irish. They were very religious. 10 Commandments is on one side, and a picture of the first minister in Collinsville at the Methodist Church is on the right-hand side. Kimi Saharsky from Kenwood heard about what we were doing and called me at my office in Wilma Rudolph Boulevard in Clarksville, and we had lunch one day, and she said, I want to bring our children to Collinsville. So right after we opened in May of '97, I called her, and they brought 175 school children. That was the beginning of it. Over 30,000 school children have been through here in the last 20 and a half years. Even though we have lots of adults, we really have all these over 30,000 school children. When the school buses arrive, divide them into 4 groups, red, yellow, blue, and green. The red group always starts in the 1840s. They walk down the road, and we have 2 docents down there. We have one spinning and one telling them about the lifestyles of the 1840s. The yellow group follows down the road and over to the dirt road to the school. The green group starts with a hayride from the Wildlife Center, and the blue group starts in the 1870s house. So the hayride controls it all, and it works just like clockwork. He takes them around and he keeps it on the half hour. 10:30, 11, 11:30, and 12. You can bet he's going to drop his group off in the 1840s. They're going to go to the school will go to the 1870s, and when they get up to the 1870s house, we try to greet them at the front and ask them, look at that flag up there. What's unusual about that flag? Oh, I don't know. Well, count the stars and stripes. Well, there are 15 stars and 15 stripes. Well, do you know when Tennessee became a state? No. Well, do you have anybody that has a June birthday? Yeah, I do. Okay, June the 1st, 1796, Tennessee became a state. She was Sweet 16. She was the 16th state, but there's not a 16 star up there. So they're learning about Tennessee being Sweet 16, and they won't forget that. The Randall Agency was hired by the Chamber, and they would go around to the different attractions, not letting them know who they were, to see the cultural connection, and said that Historic Collinsville was the most authentic settlement they had ever seen. Glenn and I have been very fortunate. We've received 2 awards. We've gotten the Arts and Heritage Award for Lifetime Achievement in Heritage in 2009. And that is the Clarksville-Montgomery County Arts and Heritage Council, which is very strong, very well-known, very fine group. And then the Cave Johnson stamp of approval from the Montgomery County Historical Society. been praised. We've been in Southern Living, we've been in the Brinkley, Arkansas Gazette, the Leaf Chronicle, the Nashville Tennessean. Many, many magazines, too numerous to mention. And I have been so fortunate. There's no woman in the world that's been as fortunate as I have with Weekly Business Services and Historic Collinsville, and been married to Glenn Weekly for 65 years on May 3rd. We'll celebrate later. We didn't have time that day. We had a school tour, I think.
It's been a long time. We've had a great life.
And that's my story. And here I am. Oh, that's boring. Oh, God. Not at all. Oh, gosh.
For current and exclusive content, subscribe to CDE Lightband, connecting you at the speed of light.